My name is Angela O'Neill, and welcome to Stories in Progress, a place where faith, creativity, and storytelling intersect. This is like, I don't know, this has become part of the thing for me.
Yeah, totally. It's gives you something to fidget with. I think
Yeah,
it's nice. Yeah.
yeah. And just, yeah, I think I would be afraid almost now to not have it. You get in those like modes of,
This is your
I don't
your
have the power.
protective. Oh, my green drink's a little grosser looking to hold.
Oh,
Just
well, cheers.
cheers to
And
stories in progress.
with that, let's start.
Yeah, let's jump in.
Hey, everybody. This is Angela O'Neill with Stories in Progress, and I am here with my good friend. You've heard about him. You've heard about him a lot. My editor, my coach, my not moral support. Well, I mean, support.
Yeah,
Yeah.
moral support.
My cheerleader. And one of the biggest things in writing my book, Drew, was I wanted someone to check the theology and make sure that the art didn't get in the way of the
Hmm.
theology. And so here he is, folks. Drew Tilton in the house.
Woo! Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, they're good
Yeah,
crew out there in
yeah.
the
In
cyberspace world.
the cybersphere,
Yeah.
the cloud, everybody that lives in the cloud.
Yes, yes. My husband John knows about the cloud and he tells me about the cloud. That's his realm. And I now believe that it is a real thing, not just a
Yeah.
cloud.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think the cloud is so misleading. I had a friend once tell me, he's like, isn't it crazy that if like all the computers in the world were destroyed, there'd still be the internet out there just floating in the air? And I'm like, I don't think that's how it works.
I don't think it's how it works either, but
That's the cloud. That's what the cloud makes me think of. I'm like, oh, it's in the air, my
that's
files.
that's how I always used to think about it until I learned that that's not the case. And I remember asking John one day because he works in the AI world and all that. So
Yeah.
I'm like, so is iRobot going to happen?
Yeah, yeah,
Because I'd like to know. Do you know? And he,
yeah, but they're gonna just want to advertise to you just nonstop. They'll take over the world so that they can advertise.
that's right. They're gonna
No.
find the algorithm. It's not the Will Smith movie anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Drew, it is so good to have you on the podcast. It's so good to catch up with you. Um, for those of you who may just be tuning in, I just recently, maybe this is your first episode, I just this year wrote a book, and Drew was a huge, huge portion of why that book went from pages on my computer to actually physical pages that readers can read. And so
Yeah, it's right back there. I
it's
see
right back.
it.
Yeah, it's right
Yeah.
back there. Yep. Um, it was a great journey. And so today we're going to talk about stories. We're going to talk about how you help people um, kind of take their dream to a reality, the impact of stories. We're going to talk about my book a little bit. We're going to have a lot of fun. And side note, I have said often in conversation, our editing sessions would be scheduled for an hour, and then we would usually go like 2 hours because
Yeah, there's just so
which I
much to
was
talk about.
I was so grateful for. I mean, you didn't have to do that, but um, there was so much to talk about, and
Yeah.
so with theology and art and all of these things, and so we're going to talk about all of that today.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that you had mentioned that one time that you had talked to me about starting a podcast on art and theology. And I think it really came from our just conversations sitting like this on Zoom.
Yep.
And then we would just like go in depth on things and just be like, oh, that's so interesting. Oh, wow, that's great how that, and it would just be really, really rich conversations. So I enjoyed them a lot.
Well, I did too. And yes, I literally was thinking we should just press record and and have
We
our
could have had so many podcasts by now, so many episodes.
we'll just go back, we'll backtrack.
We'll
Hey,
backtrack.
I'm still here for it. So there it is. Well, so here we'll start with the book since we're talking about that right now. I love how we met first because as an artist and as a writer, our creations become like children for us, where it's this
Mm,
thing that we are pouring our heart and soul into. And to place eyes on it, to know that you're going to get red lines back or red letters back that are, you know, potential switches or changes or shifts, it's a really, really vulnerable place. Um,
absolutely.
and I am grateful because I can just look back and see God's hand in you and I met. I was writing a blog, some blogs for Trochia Ministries, and you
Hmm.
were editing the blogs, and you and I met doing that. And I love that story because, for one, I would have had no idea where to look. How do I find an editor that is not just
Totally.
an editor, but also is going to give me the theology backing? I
Right.
That was core to me. And that's like, do you Google that? Do you ask AI? Do you ask ChatGPT? Who do you ask?
I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know.
And here
Yeah.
you came, and at the right time, I got asked to write some blogs, and you were the editor. But also, so you fit all the things I was looking for, the checklist I needed for my book. But also, I got to learn your voice, which was so kind and so um, encouraging, of just wanting to get to a best place in writing. And so on a small project, I got to learn your voice, which then for the project, which I had poured years into, now I could understand red letters and red lines in a much different way than just a stranger who was reading my book. So
Sure.
um,
Sure.
I'm just thankful. And it's one of the hindsight things where you go, wow, I can see how God showed up there in a really amazing way.
Well, I think you brought up a lot of interesting points that if somebody out there is interested in writing a book, I think they're feeling a lot of the same things. There's the vulnerability of it. I've spent a lot of time on this,
Mm-hmm.
but like I don't know if it's good. I don't know if people are gonna like it. I don't, I would love to have the advice of an editor, but I'm also scared of that advice.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's the question of like, where do I even find this person? How do I find the right person for my project, the right editor for my project? Um, and all these things that just create these barriers that ultimately discourage most people, right? Like I think everybody has in one time thought of writing a book, I feel
Yeah.
like. And that's not to say that everybody should. It is a it's a large task that takes a lot of work, and you really want to have something valuable to say in a creative way. But I think, for those who should, it, there's all these barriers and these hurdles that just come up that just intimidate and exhaust and eventually cause people to quit.
Yeah.
And so I think, so much of my hope is, I'm not necessarily like this marketing guru where I'm like out there in the algorithms and things. And but if I cross paths with somebody, which is pretty much all word of mouth, my work, I want to be that encouraging person for them, to help them grow as an editor. As an editor, it's
Yeah.
part of my job,
Right.
is helping them put out the absolute best work they can, help them grow as a writer, not just like say, do this, but explain why I'm asking them to do that. Hopefully that they can take that and apply that in future points in their writing. Because an editor in a lot of ways is a teacher,
Yeah.
and that hits my heart and my calling, as a teacher, not only of writing, but also, as you pointed out, of theology. I have this like really unique mix of
Mm-hmm.
background that allows me to live in this niche where it's like I was a pastor.
Yes.
I have spent way too much money on theology school, and I don't get to use it as much as I want. And this space gives me a unique niche to use not only that, but my passion and love for art and writing, um, and
Yeah.
helping people write well, and share their stories well, and um, share their stories about God, about what God has done, about what they have experienced in Scripture or in
Right.
life.
Yeah.
Um, I think all those things just really resonate with me. And that's such a big reason why I do what I do, and hope that I can support people that are in this very vulnerable and confusing, and hurdle laden
Yeah.
space, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Right. Well, and it's easier to put the pen down or to even write it and then stop because the next
right.
part is scary. I get that. I
Mm,
mean, I think and this was even this had nothing to do with you. This had everything to do with all the things you just said. When I handed in a chapter, especially first chapter, I was
mm,
terrified inside, going, "What am I doing? I
yeah.
shouldn't be." It's all the things. But then I would get on a Zoom call with you and talk for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, which was incredible. And I will say, what you did was not ever try to change my voice, but try to enhance or think of maybe a shift here that just is like flip these sentences and that works, or a question of, I know what you're saying because I've now spent time with you, but your reader might not really know what you're saying right here. It's not that it's bad, it's not that it's this, but they might not get it. So think about it and to go back.
Right.
And so um it was a great process. I can't wait for book 2 like we were talking about
Woohoo!
earlier.
Yeah.
Um well, how about let's talk about that then. What is it that you tell listeners about cohorts that you do with you also do individual, you do freelance
Yeah. So
writing. You're
I
kind of
do a
a
lot of
master. Yeah,
different things. Yeah. This is how you make money as a writer. You try to just do as much as you can.
that's right.
Uh, so I, what you went through with me was my cohort, right? But I think we didn't end up lining up with anybody else at the time. And that's kind of how the cohort has gone, to be honest. I call it a cohort, but it honestly, I end up doing one-on-one with people most of the time
Yeah.
because people are like different schedules and things.
Mhm.
So it's hard to coordinate everything. But
Well, and I
I
think,
think
oh, sorry. I
I was
think
just
I
gonna
came in
say,
at the end of the book. And so that's probably
right,
something
right.
people
That's
are,
probably why we didn't do it that way.
yes.
Because you had already written so much, and the people coming in actually generally, maybe they've tried a few chapters, they got a few chapters, they've tried to write their book a few times, and they just keep hitting this wall.
Hmm.
And so what I do is what I call author coaching school, and it's a 3 month program that I've
Yeah.
built that involves you writing 30,000 words, which is a short book, but it's still a good amount. And for some people, that's just the start of their book. But the whole point of the process is to launch people into their writing.
Yeah.
So we do, we build writing rhythms at the beginning. We spend a lot of time in the pre-writing process, the outlining process. I teach people how to outline well,
Yeah.
which is a huge reason why people don't finish is that they've got a very half-baked idea of what they want to write. Um, and I spend time in their writing with them. I
Yeah.
go through 30,000 words with them, which is, a good chunk to go through. We meet every other week. So you get, over the course of 3 months, you get 6 one-on-one sessions with me plus 2 group sessions, which, like I said, almost always end up being one-on-one sessions. So
Yeah.
really 8. Um, and it's, I think it's a really, really, really good process for people that are just starting off in their writing, or maybe they've been writing for some time but haven't been able to really get the book process down, because there's a whole formula. Just because you're a good writer doesn't mean that you've got the know-how to write a book, because a
Yeah.
book takes so much discipline, so much focus, so much big picture. You're constantly going back up, go forward, back up, go forward. Maybe as a visual artist, you might think of it as a painting, where it's like, oh, I got to get these leaves going, but then I got
Right.
to back up and make sure that the tree's looking shaped properly and that it
Yeah.
fits with the landscape. And
Yeah.
so you're doing so much of that with a book, that it can be really overwhelming and really intimidating. And how do I get in here into the details
Yeah.
while also not losing track of what we're doing bigger picture wise? So,
Right.
um, yeah, I think that's what the course is all about. Yeah, like I said, 3 months. I'm doing one in January 2026, so that'll be fun to jump in with some people and jump into their work. And I think the 3 months is all about me trying to scale
Yeah.
my work, because I never want it to be impersonal. I always want it to be um, very intentional, very one-on-one. I've just, I know that there's a lot of other courses like this out there, and they're very impersonal, a lot of videos, and
Yeah.
you end up getting a coach who's really like, no offense to anything, they're doing their thing, but like the coach is usually like some 18-year-old kid fresh into college trying to get a little extra work,
Yes.
and they took their own little coaching course to become a coach so that they could, and it just is like the way that they scale it, I don't love. So I'd way rather work with people one on one, have a
Yeah.
smaller cohort every 3 months, and then I can scale it um, much easier. So that's kind of the vision behind the course. I also do, like I'll work with people if it's more expensive. So that's why I have this kind of version, is something that normal people can afford. But
Yeah.
some people, have the resources available for whatever reason, and want to work with me one on one. I'll do full scale developmental edits over the course of, we'll go through 3 drafts of 80,000 words, and it's just a much more laborious process. I'm in the weeds a lot more, but I do that stuff too. I work
Yeah.
with publishers, both editing and creating resources, mostly Christian publishers. I work a lot with Baker Books. I've worked with HarperCollins in the past, and have a few others that I'm kind of exploring some opportunities with now. So those are kind of the things that I do. And you can check it out on my website, ossiocreative.com. And if
Mhm.
you want to hear more, I mean, there's a link right there at the top for the author coaching school, but it's ossiocreative.com/ACS. So if you want to check it out. But yeah, I think, like the with writing, the reason that I like that it's kind of a school mindset is, and you mentioned it earlier, it's a vulnerable thing, but I think for whatever reason, we treat writing like it's this thing that people just got, and,
Yeah.
that they were born with, and you either got it or you don't. And I, I I don't think it's that way at all. I think it is something that, like most other things, takes a ton of practice.
Yeah.
You need coaching, you need support to guide you in the right way. We grow up, most of us grow up playing sports or doing music or whatever, and in all of those scenarios we practice.
Right.
Even in school we practice our work so that we get better and better. But for some reason, when it's like someone sits down to write a book, they write something out and then they get some feedback, and it's like, I'm terrible, I guess I just never should have done this.
Right.
And it's like, no, that's not true.
No.
Like, the truth is that you need practice, you need coaching, and you've just never spent time really practicing and getting coaching in a way that would be helpful, since you were in high school. And there's only so much that you can do when you're growing, and unless people did this in their higher education. Um, but yeah, I think that's the kind of support I hope to give people in ACS, is just that sense of, hey, I'm growing and I'm practicing and I'm with an encouraging coach
Yep.
who can call out the good in what I'm doing, and also support me in sharpening my skills and growing as a writer and helping this particular piece of writing be the best possible piece of writing it can be.
Yeah.
Um, that's really my goal. Like that's my hope, and I like getting to work with people on that, and like getting to support people in that dream because I know what that's like. I'm a writer too. Like, and so I think all editors are pretty much writers that we're like, maybe I can make a little more money editing, and and then you end up in this world. But
Yeah.
I get that. I understand what it's like to offer your writing over and feel like totally like, oh my gosh, like this person hates it and I suck and I should just never, touch a keyboard or a pen ever again. And, you
Yeah,
know,
totally.
so
Well, and I have to say that you were all of that for me. And so, and there, I think that like wanting to be our best is a good thing. Wanting to always learn. I was just telling my husband, I was at a board meeting at our alma mater, Cal Baptist, for the School of Performing Arts. And there's this new voice teacher there who
hmm.
was talking. And I said to John, I went, I want to take voice lessons from him. And and he goes, do it. And I went, well, okay. But it's that I think no matter how many books we've written or how many songs we've sung or how many, whatever the thing is, to always want to grow is a good thing.
Totally. And I'm a
Um,
better editor today than I was when I did your last book. So when we do your next book, like, because I really am, I'm always trying to grow. And I think, when you give yourself permission finally to be like, I'm in progress, stories in progress, right?
yeah,
Um, I'm in progress and I always will be.
right,
So I might as well just embrace learning and,
right,
that level of humility. Um, that's required in that, of look, I'm not the best editor in the world. I'm not the best writer in the world. And that's okay. And I also want to grow. And I also think in the midst of that, I can still help people in the process.
yes,
Um, and that's not to say I would encourage everybody, like I can do it, but like, um, I, I would say that it is such a thing where there's always new perspectives coming out that help shape us. And I think that's, to get into the God perspective, like that is our lives with God, right? We're never finished this side of heaven.
right,
We're never this complete work. We're a work in progress. We're being, like we're learning and growing. And I feel like as soon as you think you've got it figured out with your, say, your spiritual development or your love or whatever, you've probably regressed because
right, right,
to think that you would have it figured out is a huge, like, point of immaturity. To be honest, I notice how immature I feel in those moments when I'm like, I got that down, and then I just get totally humbled by something, and then I'm just like, oh well, I'm the worst. It's just, like, and not to be to down myself, but I think, I say that in jest. I'm not the worst, but I am a person who is growing, and we all are. And so I think when we give ourselves permission, we can fall in love with the art again. Permission to be in progress.
yep,
And I think that's what I have towards writing and editing and
yeah,
the written word is like, I love it. I legitimately love it. I read all the time. I write all the time, for both work and personally. I love to edit and help people with their work.
yeah,
And it's a joy, and I think that's what art can be for us is a joy, whatever our goals with the art is. It's a it's there's an intended ability to like, this is a way that I get to tell people about myself
yes,
somehow,
right,
and help them, I always say like art is a piece of me reaching out and connecting with a piece of you, you
Yeah.
know, and that is really what I think people who have fallen in love with art of its many kinds, you know, love about it is
Yeah.
that it's like, wow, I feel like I was able to create something that really encapsulates just a small piece of me,
Yeah.
and who I am, or this experience that I had, or something that I'm seeing in the world, or something that I see in God.
Yeah.
Um, and it, like is a way to express ourselves um, so much so much more robustly than just saying something. Art is like Mary Poppins bag too, right? It's like
Yes.
it just keeps coming. Like you can just look at a painting and you're just like, wow, or look at a
Right.
story. I think that's
Right.
what's brilliant about like Jesus's parables, right? Is that it's like you could read the story of the lost sons and you could just keep pulling stuff out of that bag for forever, versus if Jesus said, you know what, I'll always welcome you back, like, which is a great sentiment. And in some ways, he does say that in other places. But at the end of the day, the story itself can be so much, it can say so much more than what's just in the words,
Yeah.
right? And
100.
that's what art can do. And I think that's what makes it really powerful, a really powerful tool of expression and communication.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how I got on that
I love it. Well,
train, but I think that is what I love about art and about failure and not doing well and giving yourself permission to grow. Like you're gonna fail. I mean, fail. Like I know people get afraid of that word. I'm not too afraid of it, so I guess I'll say it. But um, people hit this point where they're like, I'm too afraid to fail, so I won't do it at all.
yeah.
And it's like, well, that's you failing, like, if you try and there's very few scenarios, maybe skydiving, like that, where it's like, if you fail, that was the one time,
Yeah.
like you messed up. Like, like there's very few scenarios like that,
Yeah.
like where it's like, okay, I failed once and now it's done,
Now it's
but it's like,
right.
no, especially with art and expression, it's like,
Oh,
you gotta fail, you gotta learn, you gotta grow, you gotta, paint a painting that you're not super satisfied with, like write something that you need to edit and, rethink and rework. And it's
yeah.
just like, what? Maybe you have a lump of clay and it's like you're shaping it. It's got the right shape, but, the details are off. And so you got to readjust. And
Yep.
so, yeah, we got to give ourselves permission to learn.
Well, and I love that. I mean, even bringing it back to the Bible with failure, that we don't see that, well, except for Jesus, who was perfect.
Oh
We see failure amongst the
my
heroes of the
gosh.
faith over and
Yeah.
over and over. I think of Peter and how he was like, nope, I'm not gonna, I'm by your side, I'm gonna
Right,
die with
right,
you. And then, you know, Jesus calls out, the rooster's gonna crow, you're gonna deny me, all the
right,
things. And nah, no, no, no. That, just that when we get in our way, sometimes even, or when we think we've got it and there's nothing else to learn. And that happens, of course, all of that happened. Failure that could have been, I will never try anything ever again.
right,
And yet, with grace and with Jesus, it's a moment for us to learn and keep going.
right.
So,
Totally.
um,
No, and I think Peter's such a good example. And even beyond his, obviously he has the famous deny you three time thing. But like he was like all the way up to that point, he was just like constantly like stepping in it.
yeah,
Like like he'd be like, like, oh, Jesus, then wash my whole body. And then he's like, oh, no, you're not going to wash my feet, but then wash my whole body. And then Jesus is like, bro, just chill out. Like, and then, even after Jesus's resurrection, ascension, he gets into this huge conflict with Paul.
yeah,
Like, and he basically like gets really intimidated and wanting to oppress these Jewish Christians.
Mhm.
And he kind of, like backtracks on, essentially letting the Gentiles know, no, you do have to convert to Judaism and then to Christianity. And Paul was like, what are you doing, man? Like, and there's this very interesting, we have to kind of read through because the account isn't like in the book of Acts or something,
Yeah.
but, Paul references it a couple times. And it's like Peter was never finished. This guy that led the church,
Yeah.
like the very first leader of the church,
Right.
um, was very imperfect and continued to be so and
Yes.
continued to be a work in progress. And it
Yes.
wasn't like, because maybe that's the myth too, is like, oh, there's going to be a certain point where I hit the pinnacle and there's nothing else to learn. And it's
Right.
like, that won't happen either.
No. Till we get to heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are
Yeah.
we? It's going to be all we've dreamed of and more when we get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I love that the imperfection is there. Even like you said, you would say, okay, then after that he moved on, and no, he kept messing up, which is the grace
Right.
in there, and that we're not perfect, and it's not an invitation to go, you know,
Right. No.
try to,
But
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to like, okay, I can sin or whatever, and
Right. Obviously, this breaks down a little bit. And with art, it's like just go try and figure it out and be
yeah,
willing to fail. With sin, I think it is a two-handed willingness, but desire to not, sin is to live misaligned with your God-given intention.
yep,
And to not allow others to live aligned with their God-given intention, with who God created you to be.
right,
And I think there is the two-handed of like both. I know that I will live misaligned with this,
yes,
but I also desire to grow
yes,
in my alignment to
yes,
live the more and more in line with the abundant life that
right,
God has planned for me, and to allow others to do the same.
yes,
And I think that is, like it's such an interesting tightrope to walk, because it can be so easy to shame ourselves, which is really unhelpful.
yep,
Um, well, at the same time, it is, like very easy to land on the side of permissiveness in
right,
certain areas. And I think we all do that. And so in some ways there's grace in that. But there's certain sins and things that we just are like, that's not that big a deal. Or, what, it's just the one thing, or I really should do better. But we don't do anything to try to
right.
change. And um, I heard somebody say once, and I think you got it from somewhere else, so I don't even know where this started, but I thought it was a helpful analogy for repentance. Um, uh, he basically said, "Hey, I walked down the street and I fell in a hole, um, and then I walked down the same street again, and I fell in the same hole, and then I walked down the same street again, and I fell in the same hole. Repentance is trying to walk down a different street." And I think that is a really helpful way to think about repentance. It's like what repentance theologically is to turn around, and head a different direction from the one I'm going. And grace is what allows us to do that. But repentance essentially is saying like, hey, what are some different things I could try that might support me in not falling in the same hole that I always fall into?
Yeah.
And a lot of that ends up being spiritual disciplines, like opportunities to open to God in ways that I haven't before. Um, say that you are really struggling with gossip about your friends, and it's something you've always known is there. And you're like, it's not that big a deal. But then, a couple times you really hurt a friend. Like you really do it through gossiping about them. You just, like make them feel unsafe with you and all that stuff. So like what would it look like rather than just stepping into all these scenarios where it's like you've habituated yourself into gossiping. We do this, we habituate ourselves to these different, areas where we're living in misalignment. Um, what would it look like not only to enter into that space differently, but to set myself up before I enter into that space to be different. And so it's like maybe you start a discipline of gratitude every morning. You think like you thank God for a certain friend and what you love about them. And and maybe that God uses that to help reorient your heart around what you love about people rather than what you can critique about people.
So good.
And you look when you're in that space, you look for opportunities to encourage or affirm friends and affirm friends when they're not around. Like somebody comes up and you're like, okay, rather than just saying like, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that. It's like, okay, what can I do instead? How can I focus my attention instead on what is good, what is pure, what is lovely, what is admirable, what is praiseworthy about my friend, this person that I have gossiped about in the past. But what I love about um, Angela is like she is always so encouraging to me. She sends me emails. She asks me to be on her podcast. She talks about me behind my back, but in good ways. Apparently, that's what you're doing. You're gossiping about me in a very positive way. And so I think we just got on this lane, so I'm just going with it. But I think when we think about our failure, it's a yes, and there is grace, and what might Jesus want to do?
Sure.
To allow me to live more aligned, because ultimately it'll be best for me, best for the people around me. I'm going to live more aligned with the abundant life because of this. I'm going to be more satisfied, more joyful, more at peace. And but that's I had a professor that used to say spiritual growth is the slowest motion on earth. Like it just is like rather than just like a straight line up, we're doing kind of this like circles down, up, and we're slowly, maybe hopefully getting a little further up each time. But sometimes we're like whoop, 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 woo, woo,
right.
whoop, whoop. And I think we have to give ourselves both the grace that Jesus offers us, while at the same time asking Jesus, what are you up to? What might you want me to see? How might you want me to adjust what I'm doing for the sake of your transformation inside me? And spiritual disciplines, they don't, I mean, they'll habituate us in different ways and things, but ultimately the real transformation comes from spiritual formation. Opens us to Jesus in deeper and deeper ways, opens our heart to Jesus in deeper and deeper ways, that he might transform us from the inside out. And so these are all acts of surrender and prayer to Jesus. But I think finding ways to accept our imperfection while also asking, how can I better myself? And that's true with art and sports and all these other things we practice too. We're not, if we're doing it right, we're not beating ourselves up for our imperfections, but we're also not just allowing them and being like, good enough. The growth, the sense is to always get better and better and better in certain things. I mean, we cap out, a lot of us, but I'm never going to be in the NBA as much as I wanted that as a kid. But but I think the general heart and premise of growth is not this satisfaction with what that you've arrived, but that I would give myself permission to fail so that I can grow and get better. Because failure is an important part of growth.
100%. Well, I look at whenever I direct a show, I do that more, but allowing the not that it is failure. If you don't try, then it is, like, but allowing the actors try things. We're going to get
Yeah.
to, we're going to refine and find all of the right intentions and all of the right reactions and all of the right, but we've got to try to get there. And so you've got to try something new. You've got to, I'm teaching right now, um, one-on-one with students, kind of similar, but just in an acting way.
Yeah.
And there was a, let's just give this a try. Let's see how this little adjustment might work. And then you see eyes open. Okay, well, now
Hmm.
let's mold it along that instead of just kind of going straight into like kind of one dimensional. Let's find all the dimensions that are
Right.
actually in here. We could do an okay job and have it be okay, that was good. Or we could dive deep and find the nuances and find the right things to make this powerful, this story
Right.
powerful. And that's life too. It's, it's the writing process. I think of our time together and go, here it was, and appearingly done, but it would have been one dimensional. There was so
Mm.
much further. I remember even saying to you one day, I had a little bit of kind of backstory and application from my life and saying, I'm not sure if I should even put that in there. And you going, you have to put that in there because it connects readers to the story, to the like, this is a
Yeah.
current connection, um, and vulnerability in a way that's gonna give it a new dimension
Right.
for the
Right.
reader to have, all the nuances that we can drive instead of it just being one
Yeah.
dimensional.
And that's I think maybe the best part about writing is that it's like you don't show it to anybody until it's ready. So
Yeah.
and I think I love that about it versus like some of the other art forms that I've done that are very, performative.
Yeah.
Um, I think, but to that point, like you said, you're refining stuff in rehearsal so that when you get it, you feel ready. Like, but similarly, like a book, like that's what's great is like you're showing it to me, but that's okay. I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm not going to, I'm going to encourage you, but when you're ready to show it to the world, it's going to be ready. Like, is the hope. And,
Right.
it doesn't mean that everything about your book is perfect, but it just means that it's like, hey, look, we have a chance to make this as
Yeah.
sharp as we want to before we show it to people. And there's such thing as overdoing it, but for the most part, it's like, hey, look, let's just really hone this in. Let's try a few things. There's even like I've taken people through a beta reader process, like which is a really helpful process.
Mhm.
Where you receive feedback, very vulnerable
Yeah.
process, but
Yeah.
very helpful. And it can really help you sharpen that even more before it gets to the even broader audience.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many great ways that we can
Yeah.
grow before we show someone this piece of work that we've spent so much time and energy on. And so
When
yeah.
we didn't go through a whole beta reader process, beta reader process. Say that five times fast.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do remember you asking me one day, who is your reader? And
Mm,
and I said, well, I think it's broad, but I'll probably end up speaking mostly at women's events because that's
mm,
kind of just where I placed myself and it's what I had done before. And I remember and it stuck with me and perhaps even impacted chapter 12, which there wasn't 12 chapters, there were 11 chapters and that's a whole story. But the 12th chapter came. But I remember you saying, Angela, you need to broaden your idea of what this is, where this is going. It
mm,
isn't just, and not that that's bad, but this wasn't just going to be a a book for women's conferences or a women's Bible study, and that is a wonderful thing to do. I was putting myself in the comfortable spot of where I had been before,
sure,
and you were
sure.
saying it's broader, it's creative, it's worship, it's in a different area, so helping me to broaden my thought for the book.
Right. And I think, obviously you can have a book that will speak to the what women are going through, what men
Yeah,
are
of
going through
course.
specifically, but that just so clearly to me wasn't this. And and so I was like, what? Like I don't remember this conversation exactly, but as soon as you said that, I was like, no, that's not true.
Right.
And I think, like we want to have a targeted audience, right? But we
Sure.
want to understand who that target is. Like not just people rush to demographics with this stuff, but with your audience, you really want to focus on like, what are they thinking? What are they going through? Why do they pick up my book? What
Right.
captures them? What
Right.
interests them? And why do they keep reading?
Yep.
Um, what's helpful to them? What's captivating to them? And like where are they at in their, in this particular
Yeah.
case, in their walk with God, in their, journey with art, in their and so I think it helps to think about your audience. It helps you to refine like you would with a friend. Like I would speak to different friends different ways because I know that friend, and I'm still speaking in my voice and in my way, but I understand what this friend has gone through. I understand what their unique journey and experiences. So I'm going to speak to them a little differently than this friend who I know really well. And so that's understanding your audience, like understanding them like you would a friend and knowing how to communicate with that particular friend because you understand their experience. And um, yeah, I think, that it's a beautiful thing to really grasp and see like, hey, I want my audience to sit down and read my book and be like, man, Angela sees me. Like, Angela gets me.
Yeah.
Like, right? I think that is the goal. And yeah, so, and that's what beta readers can do is
Yeah.
help shape you and guide you and saying, because if you're bringing on beta readers, make sure they're part of your audience. Otherwise, they'll give you a lot of bad feedback.
Sure. That's an
Oh,
you
you're like, I don't get it. Why is all this? Maybe you do better if you didn't have so many like these scripts in this book. Like, and you're like, you don't get it. Like, get out of here.
right. Right.
But if you have the right people, they can provide like, oh wow, you really hit it there, and like, oh, I'm feeling a little confused here, and you're like, oh, I missed the mark there, and it's just good to help you reshape and refocus certain areas in ways that'll be more helpful to the end audience. So, yeah,
Yeah. I love that. Well, what would you say? We could be here for 5 hours
sure,
and it would be great. So we always say we'll just do a second podcast. Maybe we'll do one closer to your cohort coming up.
yeah,
That would be
January,
actually really
yeah,
cool.
we can do one up in Advent somewhere.
Ooh, let's do that. Let's kind of do our art and theology podcast. Maybe we'll even
Great,
pull out
love it.
Mary's chapter in my book and we'll just have one of our conversations.
That sounds
Um,
good.
okay, so we'll do that. But what would you say for someone who's listening and going and has the idea, what, but maybe is afraid? What would be your? I know we've kind of talked about it the whole time, but what would be kind of your cheerleader, like the editor who needs to cheer someone on? What would be your encouragement for someone who does feel like they have a story in them? Um, yeah,
Yeah, I'd say if you've been trying for a while, this might be one of those try a different street things.
yeah,
Um, like I think if you keep trying to start just from like, hey, I'm gonna just open a document on my computer and start typing, most people will only get so far that
right,
way.
right,
There's a lot of people, not a lot of people, I'd say there are some unique people out there that can just do it. Like I'm not one of those people. Like, and I don't think you have to be. And there's a lot of other great ways to start, write, and actually finish a book.
yeah,
So I guess my encouragement wouldn't just be the hurrah, just keep going at it, just grind it
right,
out. Like, I mean, there is an element of that, but but try some different things.
Yeah.
Think strategically, use your brain. Like you're a smart person. Like let's stop trying over and over to just like do the same thing. Another thing I'd say, and this is the advice I give everybody, is stop over editing yourself. In fact, you shouldn't edit at all until you're done with your first draft.
Mm-hmm.
You have to write and not look back.
Yep.
Get it out on the page. Like, until you have your first draft, your momentum really won't start. And so you've got to get that first draft out at all costs. And so it is writing and not looking back. Have a great outline going in, so that it guides you as you go, but you are just going after it
Yeah.
and you are writing, you're getting it down on the page, you're giving it permission to be very imperfect, knowing that you will go back and edit it.
Yep.
I'd say maybe there's some mild, like, I just want to look at this paragraph again to really sort through how I want to say this, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, you're not going back and rereading chapters, that's for sure.
Right.
Maybe the last page of a chapter so that you can just understand where you were, or the last page of what you wrote yesterday, but do not edit it and just keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
Get that first draft done. Because once you get over that hurdle, like that first draft hurdle, it will be so much easier to keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
So those would be the two pieces of advice. Like, try some different things before you start. Research. There's a lot out there of how to start, how to best outline my book. What do I need to do before I start writing my book? Just Google that. Like, I've got some articles on my page you can check out, Osseo Creative. There's a blog on there. I think it's just /blog. But there's a lot of other great people and ideas out there that can help you,
Yeah.
before you start. And then the best advice I can give you is write and don't look back. Finish your first draft. Just do it. I mean, you just gotta do it.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing
Yeah.
is
Great. Great.
do whatever you can to write as frequently as possible. If you can write 5 days a week, write 5 days a week, even if it's just a half an hour.
Yep.
Like, if you're waiting for inspiration to write, that's going to be so fleeting
Yep.
and so sporadic.
Mm-hmm.
Writing a book comes from having the discipline so that when inspiration strikes, you have the discipline to capitalize on that inspiration.
Yes.
So try to find a way to build a discipline of writing. Even if you have to start with 3 days a week. Like, I'm just going to wake up in the morning. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write
Yep.
a paragraph, a page. I got a little time before work. I got a little time after work. I got, my kid just went to bed. I just want to sit down at the, like I'm going to wake up early before my kid wakes up. Like, I have a kid, so obviously this is what I have to build my life
Right.
around.
Right.
So just finding those ways. So, yeah.
Well, and I think those are all so good. For one, I know personally, when you do the just right part of it and you aren't already critiquing and judging, you're just writing, judging yourself. Oftentimes that's the raw emotion filled for me. I can sift through later and edit for coherency, but I've thrown
Right.
the emotions on there. I've thrown the
Yeah.
raw, authentic, and it's not that it's inauthentic before, it's just refined, or later it's
Right.
refined. But there's a really great point that you've started from, because you kind of word vomited it all down. And that's a really bad word. That's not a pretty word. But
That doesn't matter. I think
yeah.
it's good. Like, yeah.
And I just did that recently. I'm working on a musical that is I have a musical that
Cool.
yes. It's already in a 1 act version, but my writing partners and I are working towards the full act, or the 2 act version. And so I had that moment of inspiration, which is
Yeah.
not always there. You're right. You cannot wait for
Totally.
that. Sometimes you gotta just plow through. But I had it and I went, I'm just gonna write all the words down for this
Yeah.
scene. And it's refining a scene I've already written. But I didn't look back to that scene. I just wrote brand new. And yeah. And honestly, it was fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really fun. And I've already gone back to this scene. It's a little different. It's something I've already done and am refining through that, right? But it was like I could feel the tone, and because I let myself write without trying to correct myself in the process, you could feel the intention and the emotion. And I'm writing a scene, so yes, it has to be emotion filled, and there's
Sure.
things in there, but um it's a fun process. It really is. And
Right.
I honestly, even in my book, there's chapters that are way shorter than before because they were long.
Right.
I kept all of the versions because some of that I thought, you know what? I didn't use it for the book because it would have been clunky or not clear. But I might use that if I speak. It's different if I'm speaking
Right.
somewhere. And
Totally.
this may be used
Totally.
somewhere else down the road. And
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so yes, I encourage that. And finding the different path or the different road. I think I know it can be really easy to feel isolated in your writing and alone and
Hmm.
very lonely process. And I think the the off ramps I got and then would get back on my road, but I would find community to have moments of like, let's get off the alone part of this and find people. And then I can go back on the road that I'm on and be okay because there was community that
Mm,
built its way within the process. To I'm
right.
an extrovert. I thrive on people. And
Yeah.
so having coaching with you or having table reads of the dramatic parts of the book,
Right.
those were
Right.
those off ramps that I got to kind of fill up my tank to then go and keep going.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, and I think that's what it is, having those off ramps, those opportunities to connect and then keep going and keep working through the process. Because yeah. And I'd say even like one, place that you can use that inspiration most effectively is to use that momentum of that inspiration to build a discipline.
Yeah.
Like I can't emphasize that enough. Like if you don't have a discipline, it's going to be really hard to finish your book because, if you're picking it up, it starts every Saturday and then you're like, well, I have this thing this Saturday and then I got, then it's once a month and then you haven't picked it up for a few months and then you
Right.
get discouraged and you're like, oh, I'm just never going to finish. And,
Yeah.
then you hit inspiration 6 months later, but then you realize your inspiration is spent rereading everything you just read and like trying to figure out where you were and
Yeah.
or rewriting your chapter,
Right.
and it's like it would be more helpful to like, hey, I'm going to visit this even in small little chunks. And yeah,
Yeah.
so I have to go, my daughter's screaming,
Oh, okay.
so
Yes, yes. I'm
I
so
want to make sure
sorry.
everything's okay.
Yes.
You don't need to be sorry. We'll use that as our transition off. Sorry, everybody. Life happens, and
Life happens. But
I just want to make sure everything's okay with her.
yes,
And she's not by herself. She's with my wife. But
yes.
you know,
Well, stay
um,
tuned. We'll revisit again.
yeah.
All
Sounds
right.
good, Angela. Well, this
Thank
was awesome.
you.
Thank you
Yep.
so much.
Yep.
All right, bye.
Bye.